Full disclosure before we get started, today's game was given to me as a promo code from the original developer. I accepted on the grounds that my review of the game would be fair and honest, as I always strive to be. He also sent this to me literally weeks ago, and I completely missed it because I'm kind of stupid sometimes. Then I realized what was going on, and I reached out to him to let him know the situation. This game just launched on Steam May 23rd of this year, and some more disclosure for your benefit, I'm really bad at tower defense games. I enjoy them, sure, just that I've never really gotten good at them. So we'll see how we do this time around. Join me for a closer look at toaster defense. Greetings everyone, this is the Hipster Snack, and today we'll be taking a look at the brand new indie title, Toaster Defense. Brought to Steam by Wushido, I think I said that right, a solo indie dev located out of Ohio. The game is a hybrid tower defense platformer with some 2D shooter elements mixed in. It's a good thing I'm good at one of those. Anyway, the game has a story in endless mode, so I start in the story campaign, whereupon I take the role of Evan the Toaster Oven. 1T Pot, and I can tell by these names alone that I will love this game, informs Evan that Tina the Toaster is under assault by strange robots from the next room over, likely under the command of the nefarious Tom Pewter. Evan, being the strongest, or at least the bravest, of the appliances, gets to work in shielding the otherwise defenseless toaster from this onslaught. As an aside, Mr. Pot also observes that this strange fixation on Tina comes from the fact that she is, and I'm quoting the game here, a very lush toaster. I do not know what this means, but I had to read it, and now so do you. So I start the game contemplating what my relationship with this toaster must be, and this game just forced me to say the words, my relationship with this toaster. I begin in earnest. To start, the game looks great. It's very colorful and zany, and the fact that I get to customize Evan is a very nice touch. The appliances all look nice and endearing with large cartoon character eyes. It reminds me of the Brave Little Toaster. Am I the only one here old enough to remember that film? Man, I feel old. Enemies are these angry-looking robot enemies, each color-coded and shaped to represent their attack method and their overall power rank. The first are these green mushroom-shaped enemies that you can easily defeat, but they have larger blue variations that are much more dangerous and you'll need to prioritize them more. There are also these drill bit enemies which you'll need to defeat in other ways, since jumping on them is literally jumping into a drill. I mean, that much should be obvious. But the enemies that really panic me are large, spherical red enemies that can damage the towers you set up. More on that in a second. And these weird blue spider tanks? I really freaked out the first time I saw them come on screen, and then recognized their uncanny movement patterns down the walls to the floor where no other enemies could go. It's just unsettling enough to command the player's attention to where it needs to be at all times. It shows a lot of thought went into the art style, and it helps the player adapt to the gameplay as a result. Also, Evan and Tina are endearing with cute, stylized designs that both authentically reflect the appliances they rightfully are, but also the fact that they're cartoon characters, so I really dig the aesthetics. Sound-wise is similar. I really dig the music. From the mellow menu music to the pulse-pounding frenetic action tracks of the main game, there's always something happening, and I love each and every one of them. As soon as I started into the tutorials, I found myself bobbing along with the music. It's a good sign for sure when you hit the floor running like that. And the sound effects are all really good, with satisfying booms when you smash enemies underfoot. Or what passes for Evan's feet, I guess. Also, one bit of sound design that actually made me laugh, like, for real, not just an acronym here, was when Evan reloads his projectile toast shots all the way, his oven actually dings. It's adorable, and the fact that kind of thought was put into it makes me insanely happy. I just love the audio design. And now for the mechanics. As soon as I started story mode, the game immediately revealed the tutorial and then asked if I wanted to read or skip it. This is an excellent start. Nothing quite as frustrating as the tutorial, I don't even have the option to skip, and the tutorial in this game is brisk and lightweight. It doesn't overstay its welcome, and it conveys to me the information that I need the most. Well done, top marks. Once I get underway, Evan has a few options available to him. On his own, he can jump, dash, and shoot toast. You can also manually reload whenever you're short on ammo. Jumping and dashing deal one large hit, while shooting does less damage per individual hit but fires very rapidly. The robots will spawn from either side of the area across the game's 3 maps. I'm just going to show the first one for the sake of this review so you guys can explore the later levels for yourselves. And as mentioned above, the enemies come in many multiple flavors and do various amounts of damage to Tina if left unchecked. Luckily, to make this less of a chore, you can fully restore all damage Tina's taken up to this point by giving her one of your hearts in exchange. You can have up to 6 hearts total, so unless you've taken quite the beating, being able to fully restore Tina's not inconsiderable health for just one of yours is a pretty huge frustration reliever, especially as I've already hinted, Tina is quite sturdy. Way more than Evan is, at least. Maybe if she was a little more proactive, she could take care of herself. But hey, there's an idea for a sequel, co-op mode. But thankfully, Tina does help in her own way, as every 5 rounds she'll generate an item for you, be it an extra hit of health or a small stash of coins. That said, you can get additional help by way of summoning one of 3 towers, I guess you can call them that, by spending the currencies you pick up by defeating enemies. These include a desk fan, which slows enemies passing by, a meat tenderizer, which is not technically an appliance, but hey, get your friends where you can, and they'll slam up and down at timed intervals, meaning that, luck withstanding, you might do a great deal of damage to groups of enemies at a time. And the lamp, which targets one enemy at a time and fires periodically upon its target so long as they remain in range. You can also upgrade each of these to a super golden orange form for 100 coins as well, upping their damage when it comes to the tenderizers, increasing their range and efficacy for fans, and speeding up the rate of fire for the lamps. My personal favorite of the lamps, which, and maybe this is my anecdotal evidence here, seem to do the most consistent damage, especially if you have several placed in a row. However, even with repeated experimentation, I find all 3 are useful, and maybe that can be chalked up to the less is more mentality they each embody, given that all of them serve a legitimate purpose. When the enemies become progressively stronger in Endless Mode, for example, having full power fans near their spawn points makes the tower-breaking red ball robots much more manageable, as it will buy you more time to intervene, and hammers continue to bash their enemies into oblivion even as they're being attacked, making them very reliable countermeasures to these annoyances. Of note, meanwhile, is the story campaign having 3 major boss battles where Tom Pewter himself will show up to have a go at Evan and Tina with a "if I can't have her, then no one will" mindset. It's worth noting that the towers do not impact Tom Pewter during these battles, so while the lesser enemies will still be slowed down and take damage, the boss will only be defeated directly by the player taking action. And, I'm terrible at these boss fights. Admittedly, when I first started playing, I was very much in the habit of jumping and dashing into enemies, very much tending to problems myself, so I actually kind of forgot I had projectiles. Needless to say, I eagerly await the day challenge speedrunners try a no-toast self-imposed challenge run of this game, because that one mechanic really changes bosses from nearly impossible to a worthy challenge. I also really like that many levels of the story campaign have varying objectives. The opening stages during the tutorial are actually cleared by simply fulfilling the objectives the tutorial want you to learn, so you can clear them very, very quickly simply by getting with the program. It's excellent game design like this that makes the different level styles so much more engaging, instead of always obeying the same tried and true criterion every single stage. Some levels need you to survive a set number of waves, where others have a real-time clock that keeps counting down no matter what, and others still will have you destroying certain numbers of enemies regardless of time or wave count. It's all really good stuff, and it makes the game a delight to play. And that's not getting into the fact that you can customize Evan. I almost forgot to talk about this again. I made him yellow and gave him a cowboy hat because that made me laugh. This is adorable, and I love that this feature was implemented. Now, having said all that, if I was to issue complaint, and I do because I am me, is that I did notice some awkwardness, and mostly pertaining to terms of Evan's movement. If you jump directly into the platform above and continue holding the jump button, the duration of what would be Evan's jump arc is instead dedicated to sliding along the underside of the platform overhead. When I first started, I thought I'd just clip through, but floors in this game are shockingly solid, necessitating spending a lot of time in the innermost columnar areas of the maps. This quirk in particular can be used to the player's advantage to avoid dropping into the drill bit robots by just Spider-Manning your way over them. But it's a little awkward in execution. Speaking of awkward jumps, every now and then, for no reason I can account for, I'd attempt to jump and not reach maximum jump height even while holding the button the entire time. This was somewhat inconsistently enforced, however, and rarely was anything more than petty annoyance. And it's important to mention that you can dash in 8 directions, greatly expanding Evan's mobility, and thankfully the game dev had presence of mind to put that in one of the tip-off loading screens because otherwise I might have missed it. But the dash has 3 issues that I noticed. First being that it isn't much of a dash. The area Evan covers using it is shallow, so you already need to be within arm's length of an enemy to hit them to begin with. I mean, kind of, Evan doesn't have arms and neither do I, but that's details. Second, the hitbox on the dash is somewhat inconsistent, especially for enemies that have just dropped down from the same floor you're on. If you're dashing horizontally, like they hit the ground and then bounce over me somehow, The third, the invincibility is somewhat wonky, where several times I would just suffer damage even when I was supposed to be dashing into enemies at very close range, and should pose no actual threat. I mean, if I dash into a drill bit and take damage, that's because I'm stupid, but this would also happen randomly to enemies who should have just been straight dusted. This actually led me to my Shoryuken strategy, where I just dash straight up into enemies coming over a ledge. This seemed to ensure more direct and consistent damage with much less threat to Evan, and drill bit robots and larger enemies dropping through wouldn't catch me at the tail end of the animation either, making following up much more doable. Now, that sounds like a lot, but in truth, it really isn't. I discovered a good deal of this because of my reluctance to get more familiar with the shooting mechanics earlier in the game, and it's pretty clear to me now, having encountered the boss battles, we're supposed to embrace it a lot more than I did. First of all, you have unlimited ammo. While it takes time to reload, you never run out of toast to fire away with, meaning you only need to get up close and personal as a last resort, which was definitely not what I was doing a lot. So it means that I found these quirks a little bit faster than most people would. And honestly, Evan still moves around gracefully, and the dash as means of getting to higher platforms and such works mechanically fine, with only small cooldown period as payment, meaning Evan can still readily be on the offensive the entire match's duration. The game is very forgiving, and I am too, because these complaints are very minor and rarely impacted my overall experience. Because overall, hey, there's that word again, the game is solid. It might require a patch or two to achieve perfection, but the gameplay loop is tight. The gameplay is satisfying and rewarding, the story is charming and silly, the game looks and sounds fantastic. It's proof positive that an amazing game can be achieved if the creator puts in the time and effort into making it a reality. As for my hypothetical wish list, co-op play definitely tops the charts. Nothing like a goofy game like this and some couch co-op to top it off. Make Tina playable. Maybe Teapot could be an ideal goal of incoming enemies. Just an idea. Also, maybe something aside from costumes to spend our tokens on. For me, this genre is very challenging and I lost a lot on the boss stages in particular. So maybe a way to buy small power-ups, maybe like extra health, extra damage up, or upping Tina's durability or passive damage buffs to the towers. Even if I had to grind for them, I'd at least welcome those kinds of options, especially once I bought the outfits I liked the most. But those are just some ideas off the top of my snacky little head. Toaster Defense gets a solid recommendation from me, and for just $10 USD, I say the price is right. Get Toaster Defense today, and that's the final word on today's bit of indie excellence. This has been the Toast Snack, bringing to light a new indie game. If you liked today's episode, be sure to hit the like button so I know. Leave a comment down below. What did you think of today's game? I loved it. And for more like this each week, be sure to hit the subscribe and bell icons too so you'll never miss a one. Each week, we have more obscure games, indie X, Snack Tech, and the new home of the Tomodachi Bros Review podcast, Season 2 coming soon. And join me here each week, 5 days a week for more, and I will see you there.